What's good everybody, this is CP and welcome back to another fantasy basketball video. Today I'll take a look at some underrated players that could be huge difference makers for your fantasy teams in the final stretch of the 2019-2020 NBA season. Especially in deep competitive leagues, some of these players might be worth trading for or holding on to for the right price, as they could give you the extra fantasy points you need to win a close matchup or a playoff series. With that said, let's not waste any more time and走起吧. The Anthony Melton of the Memphis Grizzlies could be a sneaky good pickup, especially if you play in a deeper 12 to 14 team league. Despite limited minutes in a backup role in Memphis, Melton has gradually improved throughout this season. Last month he only averaged around 20 minutes a game, but still put up a decent stat line, averaging around 9 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 1.5 steals and half a block a game. The Anthony Melton's per 36 minute stats sees him average around 15.6 points, 7.3 rebounds, 5.9 assists, 2.7 steals and 0.7 blocks a game. So fantasy wise, it looks like there is plenty of potential for the 21-year-old to significantly improve the remainder of the season. And now with Jay Crowder gone, changes in the Grizzlies rotation might help bump up his minutes as well. Down the stretch, I wouldn't be surprised to see Melton spend more time on the floor with Dillon Brooks and Ja Morant, therefore potentially making him a 13-5-5 guy, along with close to 2 steals and 0.5 blocks a game. Overall, Melton won't wow you with his offensive numbers, but he should give his owners elite numbers in steals and above average stats in rebounds, blocks and assists for his position. So if you're looking for those stats, Melton might be one of those players to roster to give you the slight edge you need to win those categories every week. Christian Wood of the Detroit Pistons might be another good late season difference maker to pick up or trade for in the final stretch of your fantasy season. With Andre Drummond out of Detroit, Wood is probably one of the biggest benefactors on the Pistons roster. As a starter, Wood is putting up very decent numbers, averaging around 18 and 9 along with 1.8 triples, 2.4 assists and 0.8 blocks per game. As a big, it would be ideal to see him put up better defensive stats. However, we can't forget that Wood has pretty much come off the bench the entire season, so it might take him a few weeks to get adjusted to starting minutes before becoming more efficient the rest of the way. Dwayne Casey seems to be very high on him, and with Blake Griffin gone for the rest of the season, Wood should be one of the main guys on the Pistons front court the rest of the way. As a result, his counting stats and efficiency should gradually improve until the end of the year, and he should be given plenty of opportunities to eat the rest of the way. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Christian Wood finish the season as a top 60 fantasy player. Mikal Bridges of the Phoenix Suns could be another underrated pickup to help your teams win down the stretch, especially if you're looking for a versatile player that can contribute in multiple categories. After an okay start to the season, it looks like Bridges is starting to really figure things out in Phoenix. Bridges has worked his way into the starting rotation and is getting better week after week. As a starter, he is averaging around 11 points along with 5 rebounds and 1.5 triples per game. But most importantly, he is averaging around 1.7 steals, 1 block and over 50% shooting. He is also starting to find his stroke from beyond the arc and might be able to average closer to 2 triples a game after the All-Star break. Going forward, it will be hard to see Phoenix cut down his minutes. If anything, it should continue to increase, and love having him on the floor for his defense. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Bridges average even better numbers in the coming weeks. At his best, Bridges can give you elite numbers in steals and very decent stats in shooting and blocks, along with a low turnover rate. Overall, Bridges is a pretty safe player to go after, and should be able to finish the fantasy season as a top 80 player. Before I move on to the next player, I just wanted to quickly say that it would be greatly appreciated if you subscribe right now, and I'll love you forever, I promise. Anyways, let's move on to the next player. PJ Tucker of the Houston Rockets might be another decent deep league pickup for your teams in the coming weeks. With Clint Capella out of the picture, it looks like Houston is going to experiment with small ball in the coming weeks, so Tucker will likely see a lot of time on the Rockets front court. Not only does this further secure his minutes in the starting rotation, but the Rockets will need to depend on Tucker more than ever for rebounds. Overall, Tucker's fantasy ceiling isn't high, but when he's balling, he can still give you useful stats in multiple categories. By no means is he a one-trick pony. If you take a look at his season averages, he is a pretty underrated fantasy player and can help you in 6 categories on a good week. On top of that, he only averages around 1.1 turnover a game, so you pretty much don't have to worry about him costing you in that category. But depending on your team's build and the stats you're chasing, Tucker might be the type of player that gives you the extra steal, rebound, or three-pointer you need to get by a tough week. Malik Beasley of the Minnesota Timberwolves might be another sneaky sleeper to target. After the trade deadline, Beasley might be one of the biggest fantasy risers to finish off the season. Playing limited minutes in Denver at around only 18 minutes per game, we have seen flashes of his potential. If you look at Beasley's per 36-minute stats with Denver, there is plenty of upside there. In Minnesota, he is currently penciled in as one of the team's starting guards, and they are giving Beasley the opportunity to shine, so it might not be out of the question to see him average around 26 to 30 minutes a night the rest of the way. This gives him a shot to be a top 100 fantasy player in most standard leagues. Over the next several weeks, Beasley's points, triples, assists, and steals could see a decent uptick, and there might be some nights where he blows up offensively. Even though it's a very small sample size, Beasley looked pretty good in the few games he played for Mini so far. Perhaps Beasley is a better fantasy option if you're playing in a points league, but he might not be a bad option in head-to-head leagues either, especially if you're looking for a guard with good minutes and the ability to cook up some offense on a nightly basis. Dorian Finney-Smith of the Dallas Mavericks is another name that has gradually impressed over the course of this season. Being one of the major benefactor of Dwight Howell's season-ending injury, we're seeing DFS average 10.5 points, 6.4 rebounds, 1.8 triples, 0.7 steals, and 0.6 blocks, meanwhile quietly working his way into the top 120. Overall, Finney-Smith won't be an elite fantasy player for you in any category, but much like PJ Tucker, he could be a decent complementary guy that gives you an extra boost in 5 or more categories. Dallas doesn't have the deepest front court, and a player like Porzingis has been in and out of the lineup all year. Aside from that, Luka has battled with his own injuries as well. As we head into the last stretch of the season, the Mavs might need to depend on a player like Finney-Smith to step up. As he is gradually solidifying his role in the rotation, he might be used in all situations, therefore increasing his playing time down the stretch. So as the season goes on, we could see Finney-Smith's number continue to gradually ascend. Damion Lee of the Golden State Warriors could be another interesting name to target, especially if you need scoring in your lineup. After getting rid of D'Lo, the Warriors have a pretty thin backcourt, and Damion Lee is currently a starter. So going forward, he might be someone to look into if you want an extra boost in scoring or someone who can give you around 1.5 triples and over 1 steal per game. Lee is also a fantasy guard that rebounds well for his position, averaging almost 5 boards per game this year. He might be more valuable in points, but he is also a decent bench guy to stream in head-to-head. We all know that Klay isn't coming back this season. Meanwhile, it is unclear when his brother-in-law Steph might return and how effective he will be when he does come back. So right now it looks like Lee's minutes should be pretty safe in the rotation. He is pretty much only splitting time with Jordan Poole. No doubt Lee will have some rough shooting nights, but seeing how the Warriors are tanking, they probably won't mind giving Uncle Damion over 25 minutes a night down the stretch. Rui Hachimura of the Washington Wizards might be another player that comes up big for you later this season. He had a very strong start before going down with an injury, but it looks like the Wizards' first round pick is beginning to pick things up again. Since coming back from injury, Hachimura has been averaging around 25 minutes a night, along with 11.5 points, 6 rebounds, and 0.8 triples. Overall, that's a pretty good stat line for someone you can pick up on the waiver wire in a lot of leagues. At the same time, he is still a rookie and could significantly improve a lot in the next few months. We also know that Washington is pretty high on him, so if they continue to fall out of the playoff race, I could see Hachimura's minutes remain in the high 20s or low 30s the rest of the way. If Rui makes modest improvements to his game, I could see him giving you 14 points, 1 triple, 6.5 boards, and 1 steal per game. Hachimura is obviously not someone you can depend on to mad carry your team to a championship, but I think Rui could be one of the better complementary players to have on your roster during your fantasy playoffs. If you enjoyed this video, please click on the link right here to watch more. So let's not waste any more time and 走起吧。